Welcome to Family Focus, a program produced by Family Service Association. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Mike Moran, and today we have, as we enter the fall, I think a really interesting guest to present to you. For those of you who've watched the program in the past, you know that one of our great pleasures on this program is not only showcasing the services that our agency provides to the community, but to get to know and to have you get to know some of the community partners that we have, and we really cherish those partnerships a great deal. One is with Fall River's First Congregational Church, and we are delighted to have as our guest, and it's been a long time coming because we tried to set this up previously, but to no avail. But today's the day where we have the senior minister of First Congregational Church, Reverend Andy Stinson, who is here with us. And thanks so much for doing the program and coming on.
Well, thank you. I'm really excited to be here. It's always great to tell the story of the wider partnerships within the city and to kind of be a part of the fabric of this community.
You know, and you're not the first minister that's come on this program. We've had several in the past, and I don't want to set the bar too high, but they're usually a pretty easy interview because they're used to talking.
Right. Yeah. You don't necessarily always want to give a pastor a microphone. It's you know you may have to. Well, yeah. Yes, we do. You just may have to wrestle it away from them. That's all.
And what I want our viewers to know is something that I found very interesting, and that is that, you know, when I met Reverend Stinson, I'll call you Reverend Andy if you don't mind.
Sure.
And, you know, we got to chatting a little bit. I said, well, you got to come on this program that we do, and it's a public access television program. He said, sure, I'd love to. And then it didn't happen. I was like, darn, because I thought the time was right. Well, now that the time is right. What I didn't know at the time that we spoke is just how interesting and unusual your story is. So before we get to all the things that are going on at First Congregational Church, and there are many, nobody knows that better than you. Let's get to know you. And you know, you had said, I'll send you a little bit of biographical information. Well, holy cow, when does the movie come out? When is the book going to be written? Because it is a very unusual story. You were career military early on.
Well, I spent most of my time in the Army Reserve, but was on and off active duty for a number of years. And had spent time in the infantry, spent time in the Transportation Corps, but most of my time was spent in the Army chaplaincy as the Army chaplain. So I spent 26 years in uniform. Of that, about 7 or 8 on active duty,
including Afghanistan.
Most of that Iraq.
Iraq.
I was in Iraq. Yep. With the Massachusetts unit, with the 804th Medical Brigade out of Devens. And so I know there were soldiers that I were deployed with that I think live in the city here still. So,
I'm sure there are.
So, yeah.
I'm sure there are. So let's go back to the beginning. Was that sort of your first calling to say the military is calling my name?
Yeah, I was. I joined at 17, so I was. I was very much interested in. I was interested in service. I mean, that is something that I couldn't have told you that then, but looking back on it now, I think there was the genesis of well, you know, you'll hear a tagline around the church every so often that I throw into either videos or things that I'm doing, which is come be a part of something bigger than yourself.
Right.
Which is an invitation that I really believe that we in the church in 2019 here need to make more often, because there are so many things in our lives that are competing for our attention, competing for our time, competing for things, and so often they are either serving something that just isn't helpful, or serving something that is not always even helpful to us, but that when we really encounter something that is bigger than ourselves, that we can offer ourselves to, and work in service. When we do that, we have the opportunity to know. I think what I think kind of the way it's the simple way is that we end up knowing joy.
Sure.
We end up having a purpose in our life.
Right.
And so when I make that invitation that you often hear me make, is that to come be a part of something bigger than ourselves.
Right.
It's like, I do feel like those seeds were laid down really early for me, and I couldn't have named them then, but in reflection, I think that is where it comes from.
Was the culture within the military recognizing that those who are religious leaders within the military who serve as chaplains have always been, probably from the earliest days of the armed forces, been a part of it. But is the culture always friendly to those with a religious calling, or is there,
Well, there's a couple of things, and you're right that the oldest branch in the United States military is the infantry. The second oldest branch is the Army chaplaincy.
Wow.
And when George Washington was standing up the Army, he recognized that yes, we need people to go and to stand on that in that place. But he said, when we do that, what we need to do is send people of God with them. And that's the second thing that happened immediately after that. And so it is the Army and the military is a microcosm of every place, and so you'll find all the people that you find in the wider world in the Army. Sometimes you'll say
the good and the bad.
Yeah, good and the bad, and you'll find and sometimes just more so like that, because there is this way in which people that are in the Army or people that are recruited for military service are actually, they have to meet certain physical standards. They have to they have to meet certain mental standards. They have to be able to capability. So a lot of times there are a lot of people, and they're young, and so you have a really energetic group of people, and so it's wide open.
And I would imagine too that they're seeking sort of professionally a level of regimentation that they might not have if they pursued another career. Or
well, whether they're seeking it or not, they'll certainly find it in the military.
Whether they're looking for it or not.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, then your adventures took you elsewhere, including becoming a commercial fisherman.
Yep. I spent.
How did that happen?
Well, I ended up with a degree in history and a degree in geography when I graduated from college, and decided to put my degree to work and go fishing. And so it was it really was. I mean, I think that adventurous spirit is a part of that. Like, I really wanted to. It was hard for me to imagine in my early 20s, kind of, going and being in an office or being in something like
Sure.
that, and I really enjoyed the physical challenge of it. I enjoyed the never quite knowing what one day will bring, and kind of the problem solving that came with that, and so the risk taking aspect and all that.
Well, and that's exactly the word that entered my mind, the risk taking associated with that, not only in terms of your safety and well-being, but in terms of your ability to make a living,
right.
And the skills associated with that. What I think we've left out of the conversation is the fact that how would you be in close proximity to places where you could be a fisherman, and that's where your origins in the coast of Maine. The central
Yes,
coast of Maine.
I grew up in Maine. I actually come from one of those kind of old Maine families. I have 11 generations from the same town in Maine.
So you've heard all the jokes.
Yeah, exactly, right. Yeah, we can't write. You can't, our family tree looks like a telephone pole, right? I know, yes.
Have you lived here all your life?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. So there's, so
and
all
I
of
knew that wouldn't be original on my part, bringing
Yeah.
that to your attention. You could probably tell us 20 more.
Yeah, but
that's where you're
that
from?
is, yeah, exactly. And so that's very much, so it wasn't a great departure for the world that I came up in to go spend a little time on boats. So.
And how long was that your professional pursuit?
I did that for about 4 years, and ended up, and then I was part-time for a year as I was transitioning into going to seminary and going to
So
graduate.
obviously that begs the question, and you talked about your military service as being a calling and being a part of something bigger than yourself. Clearly there's an extension of that point of view that is thoroughly compatible with the ministry. But was there some point where you said to friends, family, and whomever, I'm going to walk down this path?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, when they say it's a calling, they don't make that up. I mean, it really is something that is outside of, it's certainly outside of me, and certainly outside of my idea, my ability to generate this as an option.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up going to school or going to church. My folks were actually kind of invested in keeping me out of church, and
Wow.
so
Proactively?
it was not a part of our.
Just
it
not a
was
part of
just
the
not. It
family
was just not
dynamic,
on the horizon, and
Okay.
so so my journey to faith, as I in that was really. It shocked a lot lot Nobody
Okay.
would, and no one less than me. I'll be
Okay.
certain of that.
Wow.
I mean, I really, it was a hard thing for me to find myself in that moment of like, oh my gosh, this is really going to happen.
This is real.
This is real.
Happening.
Yeah, and so.
And was the family accepting of that calling? Did they encourage it and say, hey, he must know what he's talking about? I mean, it isn't like we're forcing him into the
Right.
business.
Right. I think they still kind of shake their head and try and figure out where they went wrong, but they are. But they've come to really respect and be supportive. I mean, they have a lot of, they have a lot of love for me anyway. It's that kind of thing.
What a great
they really
story.
have a sense of as people will, kind of wanting good for their kids, and they want good for me, and they see that. They see that this calling has brought that.
I will ask you this because it's one of the questions that I've asked other ministers who have come on this program. I'm thinking of them as I'm asking, fondly as I ask you this question. You got to come up with a sermon. How's that process work for you? And I ask that because as somebody who's done a lot of writing, and for 10 years I wrote a weekly column in the local newspaper, the Herald News, about things unrelated to my other work, but because I kind of came from a broadcasting background that I was always interested in the local political scene and what was going on statewide, so I would write about that. And I can remember those Sunday mornings when I'd be walking around pacing, saying, I need a first draft by 5 p.m. That's my self-imposed deadline, and I'm coming up dry.
Right.
Does that happen to those of you who need to? Of course, it's not Sunday morning.
Right.
Sunday morning is the end of the
Go down.
process for you, right?
Right.
Could you just enlighten me and talk about that process?
There's a lot of different. I talk about it this way. I had the opportunity as an Army chaplain to spend a week. We were essentially locked in the basement of the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. And we were on this retreat, and we had it was a preaching retreat taught by a fellow by the name of Barry Black. Barry Black was the chaplain to the United States Senate at the time, and he's probably one of the premier preachers of the last century. I mean, he's an incredible voice, and he started, and it was his model that I ended up starting to work with in preaching for me. And so it is, and it's really this unfolding process of bringing myself to of starting with a text and working through that text, and then seeing where the things that come alive in it are. And the great Billy Sunday, who is probably one of the great preachers of the early last century, he said that you always have to preach with one hand on with the Bible in one hand and the newspaper in the other.
Yeah.
And that so there's this way of bringing alive these ancient texts that and the way that they speak to us today. I mean, the great John Robinson, who's he was when the Pilgrims departed for the New World 400 years ago, and this is the 400th anniversary coming up next year, is that he was their pastor. He couldn't go with them. He was 83 years old at the time, and his great sermon says that, he says, I am convinced there is yet more light to be revealed from the Word of God. And that great, like that line, you asked me about my preaching, process, and
Right.
But that's it for me. It's like, what light is there to come out of this text this morning in 2019 in Fall River, Massachusetts, for this community, for this place, and that's the task. And well, I haven't been disappointed yet.
Well, and what I'm thinking is, you can say, well, they can always, a minister can always go to Scripture and find something that's quotable, and use that as a jumping off point to a sermon. But you just pointed to something very, very interesting to my ears, and that is, how do you make what was written so long ago relevant to today's people and today's times? So yeah, you might get some ideas that flow from Scripture, but doing that sermon that's going to connect with people, I mean, that's a skill that I'm sure very few possess.
It's well, I don't know how many possess it, but I know that there is that the relentless march of Sunday coming every week.
I can relate at a different level,
Right.
at maybe a far less serious level, but I can. We're going to take a short break. We're going to take a short time out for a very brief message, and we'll come back and continue our conversation and reintroduce Reverend Andy to you in full. We thank you for watching Family Focus. We appreciate the fact that you do watch the program, and we're going to take this time out, and we'll come back in 60 seconds and have more of the program. Stay there, please.
Hi, I'm Carol Nagel, President and CEO of Family Service Association. A lot has changed since the day when our agency began its long journey of providing services to our community. In the beginning, our mission was a simple one: to provide caring and helpful services designed to improve the lives of the individuals and families who live and work here. And while the programs we provide have changed over the years, and the problems facing the community have become more challenging, Family Service is still here 125 years later to answer the call. As we look to the future, we'll continue to work together with our many community partners and to find new and better ways to bring our services to those who need them. Whether it's providing a warm, welcoming learning environment for preschool children, offering professional counseling, or helping elders maintain their good health and independence, Family Service remains committed to the spirit of that very same mission of service that guided us when we took those few steps in 1888. Please visit our website and learn more about our agency, its programs, and our long history of service to the community.
Thank you, Carol, and we hope that our viewers will visit that website and learn more about the specific programs and services that are provided by our agency, Family Service Association. We are located in Fall River, and this program is made possible thanks to our good friends at Fall River Community Media on the campus of Bristol Community College, and is seen on the Public Access Channel 95 in Fall River. The program is also available on public access channels in the town of Somerset, Swansea, Westport, Dartmouth, the city of New Bedford, and our newest affiliate station in Fairhaven. We're all very grateful to them. You can also find this program on YouTube, and you can also find it on our website. Look for the tab that says FSA on TV, and it'll take you right to the Family Focus page. And every month we update the program so that you can watch. Some of you may be watching this program via that means right now. Let's reintroduce our guest. We are very happy to have the senior minister of First Congregational Church in Fall River, Reverend Andy Stinson, who is with us, and we're talking about, and he's just enlightened me on how to do some writing for a sermon. I've never been asked to sermonize, although I've been accused of it on a few occasions. We haven't even asked you about how you arrived in Fall River, because how long now, as here we are in the month of September as this program airs, how long have you been the senior minister there?
I'll be coming up on my one-year anniversary in...
So you're still a newbie, huh?
I am, and in the 1st of October, so we're just kind of coming up on 12 months, and it's been an exciting process to come. I was pastoring a church in Maine prior to that, and to be here and to be part of such a storied community, the legacy of this church and what it's been a part of and what it continues to be a part of in the city is just amazing. And I continue to, one of the things you are when you come in as a new pastor is you're a little bit of an archaeologist, because you, particularly if you have, and it's true anywhere you go. Like I don't care what job you have, you kind of want to find out what happened before I was here.
Because the members of your congregation say, maybe they don't, but maybe they're thinking, we've been here for a long time.
Exactly.
And you're brand new.
That's right. and woe betide anyone who does not respect that. So, but it has been a real gift in getting to know this community and getting to know the people of the church, and beginning to forge ourselves together as a group of pilgrims on the way. Like that's, the congregational way. You think that's a big word, and we really understand ourselves as the direct descendants from the pilgrims that got on boats 400 years ago to begin to try to what would end up happening, really founding the American experience.
Sure.
I mean, and we take seriously our lineage in that, and that the way we come together and do church is not dissimilar to the way that there's certainly more modern advents in ways of doing things, but in what we're doing, of being pilgrims on the way. And really, the great Ram Dass, who said it best, he said, at the end of the day, we're all just walking each other home. And that is really what the church aspires to be, is a group of people walking each other home, a group of people caring for each other on the way, living in what we call covenant, this decision about how we're going to treat each other, and this promise that we're going to be in relationship with God as well, and that trying to work that out as somebody who is following in the ways of Christ. That for us is what it means, and it's really not more complicated than that.
Except it is.
I mean, it's human, so that's you have all of the human relationships that come into that. But
I say that not to disregard what you said, but I say it in as my thought process is the distractions and the noise and the cacophony of sound that's out there nowadays would seem to be a distraction from the simple yet profound message that you deliver to us here today.
I'm a big believer that we are living in a time that's not dissimilar to what Dickens was talking about when he first penned those words. It was the best of times and the worst of times. We have more opportunities for information, for entertainment, for the things that might interest us, the ability to connect with people around the planet. We have better nutrition, better education, better than any we've ever known on this planet. And yet, at the same time, that comes with it this incredible caution, this incredible difficulty because we have to answer the question, well, what are we going to give our time to then?
Right.
What are we going to give our time to? And there's so many things competing for that. And so, and so for me, I think it's an exciting time. I think it's an exciting time to be church. I think it's an exciting time to begin to try and forge community around that and around this real vision of the 203-4 years ago. It was 5 people that came together in a little parlor that decided that they wanted to read Bible together in the congregational way. Colonel Durfee, who had served in the Revolution, one of his officers, their wives, and a couple other people, they gathered in that front room, and it was from them that decided they were going to that First Congregational continues to worship and continues to stand and continues to be a part of. When I do baptisms with couples, I always impress the fact that when we sign the baptismal certificate and when we have them sign the book, there is a line of books going back all the way 200 years that they have become, that their child and their family have become a part of that long line of witnesses in continuum, and not in the great kind of church universal all over the world, not in somewhere, but right here on Rock Street in Fall River, on the same streets that their parents and their parents before them walked.
Sure. And First Congregational Church, as you've correctly pointed out, has such a storied history of being a center of activity, not just for those who worship on a regular basis, but it's been such a center of activity and such almost like the hub of a wheel. I don't know how common or unusual that is, but it just seems to me that there are a few that I can point to in my own experience where you just say there's a lot going on there. And what are some of those things that, because I know you feed the community on a regular basis, there are folks like you know, and we have the good fortune, we at Family Service Association have the good fortune of using that incredible fellowship hall that you have as the place where we can bring our staff together in a group, because we are a fairly large agency. We have a lot of people, and you have been extraordinarily gracious and welcoming to us. So we utilize the opportunity on this program to publicly thank you for
Well,
that. But there's so much that goes on. What do you want people to know that they may not know about what goes on at First Congregational Church?
Is that there's a lot that goes on that is seen, and there's a lot that goes on that is unseen, and that so. It's interesting to be in such a building as ours on 282 Rock Street. That is, we're a skyline piece of the city, and
It is.
And that to be in that place is to have this appearance of it being kind of static, like it's there, and yet there's a great number and a great piece of life that's going on around it. We have a number of different programs that we participate in, that we ourselves sponsor. But before I get into too many of those, I just want to say, how happy we are to partner with you and to be able to support your organization, because it's my belief and the belief of the wider church that the first task of church is hospitality. That is what the church has always been about. What made it different from the Roman world it was in 2,000 years ago was the fact that it treated people differently, and it offered goodness to people who would otherwise be outside of that. And the chance that
Well, thank you.
So we're happy to participate in your mission and to offer hospitality to you and to other groups as well that we partner with.
And I've left us less than 2 minutes to talk about these
All right.
things.
So let's. One of the fun things is we have a free yoga class every Tuesday night, which is which is an opportunity to. We really believe in the incarnational part of life, and so that if we're going to be spirit and body, then we ought to take care of the body, and and there's a way in which that the body does that. And so we've got a great instructor that is Nellie is terrific at people at all levels. So we really encourage you to come out and be a part of that, because it's one of the gifts we try to offer to the community.
That's right.
We have a number of partnerships with our friends at the Baptist Church, where we both participate in ministries of providing a meal once a week. We also have outreach. We also partner with the outreach workers, and this month we have a couple of exciting things that are coming up. We're partnering with folks at Granite State Recovery, and there's the director of spiritual life there, Piers Kanuka. He's coming to give a talk on the spiritual aspects of recovery. I know that's
Wow.
I believe I believe strongly as he does that this is that addiction is far more a spiritual malady than it is a physical malady.
I'm going to have to ask that people go to Google, put in First Congregational Church, Fall River, go to the website and learn so much more.
Our Facebook page is the best place to follow to follow all the things that are going on. Where we regularly keep our events and everything posted there. And to make the pitch, join us at 10 o'clock on Sunday morning. We're having some work done on the fellowship on the sanctuary this summer, and so we are worshiping downstairs in the in air-conditioned comfort, which is very nice. And so we worship at 10 in the morning every Sunday.
Thank you so much for doing this. It was long overdue, and it's been a pleasure to speak to you, Reverend Andy Stinson of First Congregational Church. And we thank you for watching. Please tune in again next time for Family Focus. Bye-bye.